Hey, what's up, everybody? Terry White here, and I'm excited to share with you once again what's new in Lightroom, specifically in this case, for the June 2026 update. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Terry, where's Lightroom Classic? I made a separate video for that, which you can find a link for in the description. So I decided because there's so many little nuances between the two versions this time around, that it would be better to make their own dedicated videos, which I did. So Lightroom Classic's already recorded, and now we're going to talk about Lightroom on desktop and Lightroom on mobile and the differences in that version. You can watch both videos. You can watch whichever one applies to you, and that's the best part. You're watching the one for the version you use. So this is Lightroom version 9.4, and also for Lightroom Classic, I believe it's 15.4. So just make sure you do your updates in the Creative Cloud app to get those, and you might have to quit out of the Creative Cloud app or even log out if they're not showing right away. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive right in. So first and foremost, let's talk about one of my favorite new features that's been coming along, and that is assisted culling. Now, assisted culling was what we call early access. What that means is that it wasn't a beta, but it was kind of like we weren't finished with it yet, kind of giving you a chance to not only play with it, start using it, learning it, but also giving us feedback. And your feedback has been helpful. We're still not done, meaning that this is like assisted culling 1.0, but it is the release version of it that you can now begin to use with confidence that it'll work in your production environment. We still know that there's more use cases, more things people want, more features people want, but let me show you what the team got in for this update. All right, I'm in an album that I want to cull. So I'm just going to go ahead and twirl down the assisted culling. And as you've seen me do before, you can do subject sharpness, you can do eye sharpness, you can do eyes open. And when you're doing the sharpness, you're basically giving it a score. So the higher the score, the more strict it is, the lower the score, the less it is. And you'll notice at the very bottom here, it's giving you selects and rejects. The selects means, it just simply means, hey, these images match or beat your score. The rejects means these images fall below your score. So it's not telling you you've got good or bad images. It's just you set up a scorecard and these are the images that met your score. These are the images that didn't. So that part remains consistent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn those off for now because I want to concentrate on one specific kind of problem, and that's whether or not eyes are open. Now, as you can see, this is an event. It's my cousin's graduation, and congratulations, Dr. Asia. But anyway, let's go on and talk about the rejects for this one. So there are 11 shots where it says the eyes are not necessarily, it doesn't know if the eyes are open or not. So for example, in this one, well, we can tell her eyes are mostly closed. And it says, hey, can't tell, but it said, I can't tell, but I think they're closed. Great. But that's the way it used to work previous to this update, meaning that if you had a single subject, it was easy. But if you're an event or wedding photographer where normally you're going to have multiple people in your shot, that's when there's a problem. So for example, here, one person has their eyes open, one person has their eyes closed. So that's a reject. Here, I'm going to go in to this particular one where there are multiple people. It's a group shot. And in this case, the group shot, this person has their eyes mostly closed, likely closed, it says, and this person's laughing. Their eyes are naturally closed when they laugh. So I would mark it as a reject, not for the person on the right, but for the person on the left. If I have another version of this photo or another frame, I go look at the other frame and make sure her eyes are open. But most likely, as long as she's laughing, her eyes are most likely not going to be open because that's simply the way she laughs. So that's where you would go in and override this shot and say, no, 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 this one, here, let me look at this other one. Yeah, so this one, it's the same thing. She's laughing, her eyes are closed. So you could go in and say either one of those, no, 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 this is a select, take it out of the rejects. So again, you're the photographer, you get the final say. Now, some people will argue, well, Terry, if you got to look at them, what's the point? It's going to, using the same amount of time. And I would argue, absolutely not. Because this 126, the eyes are open. I have to think about those. I only have to think about the 10 now where the eyes are closed. So I don't, instead of me looking at 136 images, I'm only looking at 10 that are potential problems. So to me, that's where assisted culling saves me time, because once I give it all my scores, the selects match everything. Then I'm just going in those and looking for the best ones. But when it's rejects, those are the ones I have to verify. Are they really rejects? Or are they not? And those are usually far and few between, much fewer than the selects. So that's the way assisted culling works. Now let's head over and take a look at my next feature, where we're going to go in and jump into that new improved select subject. So I've got a photo here, and what I mean by that is, let's twirl this down, or up, I should say. We'll get out of the assisted culling info, and let's go in here to the edit, and now let's go into masking. And in masking, there have been some improvements for the select subject. It's technically version 5 now of select subject, which should do a better job of dramatically improving complex subject mass such as hair, spokes like in wheels, intricate shapes, and overlapping objects. And let me show you an example of that. I'm going to go ahead and say select subject on this. And you can see it's even getting the little frizzy hairs that are on the outside. Now, I'm going to do it a little bit differently, though. I'm going to go ahead and add a different mask for the background. And with the background selected, I'm going to go in and add some saturation to that background, which is not much because it's gray, but I'm going to change the color and the temperature down. There we go. Let's go ahead and dial that up to a different color there. Now, with that mask, I can also dial it down or dial it up, so it really comes in tight along the hair. So that is a great mask to be able to get with basically one click and a slider, as opposed to having to go back in the old-fashioned way and use refined edge tools and brushes and things like that to get the hair. So much better on select subject version 5. All right, now let's go ahead and jump out of this one. Let's go into, and actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and reset that photo because I may use it for something else later. Let's go ahead and go back and reset the edits on that one. Okay, next up, let's go in and take a look at the improved color labels. So now you may not see them right away because they're not, they're on, but you can't see them in this grid view. So I have this one set as a purple label. I can see it down here at the bottom versus this one that has no label versus this one that also has a purple label. But if I hit the letter G again to go to the other version of the grid, I can now see those color labels and I can even see the color boundary around them. What's new is that you can go into color label and you can now edit color label. So before you had the same colors, the same keyboard shortcuts, great. Now if you say edit color labels, it's going to give you some more choices, including you can name your color labels, what matters to you. So maybe green is your selects and blue is your red, your rejects. You can name them whatever you want, but more importantly, you can now add new ones. So for example, I can add the seafoam color and I can say customer or client fave. Because sometimes my clients are standing right next to me when I'm doing my just on the fly culling, and maybe they like that particular one, so I can make that one a client fave. It gets the new color and also the new label, so I know what that color means to me, as opposed to my color is blue, the client color is green, the makeup artist is yellow. I can actually go ahead and name those to what they actually mean, which is more important to me. So that is the new ability to edit your color labels. Now, while we're here, let's go ahead and edit this photo, and you'll notice that we now have an interactive histogram. So that histogram is hidden by default. I'm doing a keyboard shortcut to get to it. Command 0 on Mac, Control 0 on Windows brings it up and down. But if you want to get to it from the menu, it's under the View, Edit Panels, Histogram. So View, Histogram, Edit Panels, Histogram will show your histogram. And what I mean by interactive, at each section of it shows you what it is. So this is the blacks, shadows, exposure, highlights, and whites. So if I just want to adjust the exposure overall, I can just drag on the histogram right there. If I want to adjust the blacks to be brighter or darker, I can drag them right on the histogram. So this comes over from Lightroom Classic. Lightroom Classic has had this for years. Now Lightroom Desktop gets it as well. All right, next one's kind of a fun one, especially for photographers that don't always shoot video or never shoot video. I always have to remind myself to shoot video, and it's usually too late. I think about it after the fact. So for example, here's a shot I did of the Golden Gate Bridge years ago, and I just took still. Would have been cool if I'd have had a drone or some other way to capture motion of this. So what I can do now is I can go into that photo and I can go into generate video. And when I go to generate video, I can go in directly in Lightroom now and tell it what I want it to do. So I can create a hyperlapse, I can do a slow pan, subtle motion, or custom. You can just type in your own prompt of what you want it to do. It'll tell you how many credits it's going to use, and also you can twirl down and see your specific credit balance. You can also set the length, so 8 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds uses less credits than 8 seconds. You can also set the resolution, 720p versus 1080. You can also set the aspect ratio and which model it's going to use. So I've already done this for the sake of time because it does take time to render it. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of these. Here's one where it's just, again, taking my photo and making it into a video right here inside of Lightroom. I think that's pretty cool as great storytelling, because you may not always have the ability, even if you want to shoot a video, to get the video from the angle you want, unless you're flying a drone, and we know how hard that can be depending on the location. So here's one of the MoMA in San Francisco. I took this years ago, and just, again, making a video that said basically pan it in a 180-degree fashion and show me what that looks like. Now, this is one I shot on the Jackson Street Bridge here in Atlanta, and I shot this again years ago. And I thought, well, wow, that'd be cool to have as a hyperlapse. Let's see what that would look like. And again, very cool to be able to do this right here inside of Lightroom, changing this from night to day. So awesome. Just, again, giving you one more way to do storytelling for your still images inside of Lightroom. Next up, let's talk about sharpening. So here's a photo I cropped into, and the text is not as sharp as I would like it to be. Luckily, we can now go in and I can say enhance with AI. So we first brought you generative upscale in the last version. I believe that was April. And now AI Sharpen is here, and this is using Topaz Labs AI Sharpen. So again, it'll tell you how many credits it's going to use. You can also check your balance right here on the spot. You can also do strength, strong, or default, and you can apply the denoise for it if you think it needs it. So with that, again, I'm not going to take the time to actually render it. I've already done one here. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this so we can see where, like, you see how blurry that text is and how much sharper it gets on the Topaz sharpened version. So it's not perfect, but it's certainly night and day better compared to what it was before I ran the Topaz Sharpen. So built right into Lightroom, you can sharpen images. And of course, you can also head over to Photoshop and run Topaz Sharpen in Photoshop as well if you're over there doing other edits. All right, performance improvements. These aren't things that I'm just going to talk about, and they aren't things I can really show before and afters, but performance and speed improvements to batch editing and copy paste across multiple images. We can always hope for that to be faster. Previewing versions is also much faster and more responsive here in Lightroom. Those are the main updates for this version. There might be some other little minor tweaks that I didn't get a chance to show. But again, if you're watching this and you're a Lightroom user, those are the features on Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom on mobile. If you're a Lightroom Classic user, be sure to check out the videos in one of these corners, most likely. And if not, it is in the description down at the bottom. Also, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It helps out the channel, helps me out. And with that said, let me know what your favorite feature was in the comments below from this release. Also, let me know what you still want, because we're not done, obviously. We're always working on new things, and new releases still coming out this year. So let me know what you would love to see in those releases. And with that said, cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.